Those of you staying in here, let's do this. Let's just wake up our brains for a moment. Name something that has an eye but cannot see. A needle. A what? A storm. Hurricane. Okay. Any other answers? Yep, here we go. Here's what they said. A statue, a target, a bullseye, a bat, a blind person, a potato, hurricane, and a needle. Here's one for you. What are some things people might do at a ball game that would be inappropriate to do at a funeral? A seventh inning stretch? What's that? Laugh? Clap? Okay. Cheer? Yeah, it'd really be tough to boo the ref. I mean, boo the officiant. Yeah, come on. Eat hot dogs? Here's what they said. Sing the national anthem. Well, maybe. Okay. Wear a ball cap. Do the wave. Now, that'd be an interesting funeral service if we had some of this going on. Talk out loud, laugh out loud, yell at those in charge, eat food, drink bevs, or cheer and boo. With a weather word, describe the personality of somebody, some folk you know very well. Stormy? There you go, something positive. Cloudy? Chilly? Here's what they said. Blustery, rainy or wet, hot, cold, warm, stormy, and sunny. Now, on that same vein, what movie monster describes one of your in-laws? I mean, somebody's in-laws. What'd you have? Yeah, which one? Cookie Monster? Nobody has any monsters that would describe, oh, you have Godzilla? Okay. Nobody wants to say it because it's threatening you. Here's what they said. A witch, a zombie, a Dracula, King Kong, Hulk, Godzilla, number one? Frankenstein, yeah. Okay, if a grown person moves home for a while, okay, got a single grown adult moving home, what might the parents do so they don't get too comfortable and stay too long? Charge rent? What's that? Have them do the cooking? What's that? Turn their room into something else. Make him clean. Any other ideas? Here's what they said. They said limit the company they can have them sleep on the sofa or a hard cot, okay? Give them a tiny room or a closet, okay? Set a curfew they have to follow, get a job. That one I would have just thought normal. Household chores, number one was pay some of the bills. Okay, with that in mind, let's talk about us paying the bills. Well, actually, we're not into till death do us part. We're into the first part of these things. We're in number 5. We've talked about these different commandments for married couples and about them not be selfish, have good talks, etc., etc. Let's do this one. You shall make conflicts your ally. Make conflicts or problems or difficulties your ally. There's no one passage. We're going to get to 1 Peter chapter 3 in a few moments, but let me just do more of a general idea. There are several misconceptions that people have about marriage. And number one is this. Some people will say, well, getting married, it'll remove or resolve all of our communication problems. Once we get married, we'll be together all the time, therefore we'll have no problems whatsoever. Just getting married and saying I do, does that take away any communication issues? No, it usually doesn't. It doesn't resolve those things. There's another one that says this, time alone will improve our marriage. Just spending time, being together, we'll just automatically get better and better and better in our relationship and be closer. That's a misnomer. It's a misconception because time alone doesn't make things get better. What has to be done in order to make things better? To make improvements, what do you have to do? Just spend more time? You have to work at it. Ephesians chapter 5, we looked at the roles. 1 Peter chapter 3, they all call for action. They call for people, the husband, the wife, to do parts, to work at it. Not just, okay, we've been married 20 years, therefore now our marriage over the 20 years has just gotten so that we are so much closer. That typically doesn't happen. Okay? Not if you're not working at it and putting effort into it. So you have to make the changes, and there's a passage that is really important. This one I should have put later on in some of the comments. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. What does he mean by that? If somebody doesn't have hope, then what happens? You just give up. You just give up. And so that is a critical principle. Let me give you number 3, common misconception. Good marriages don't have conflicts. Do good marriages, do good, solid people still have disagreements at times? I'm not talking blow-off fights. I'm talking conflicts, disagreements. Yes or no? Okay, so with this in mind, let me rephrase. Let me put this into a spiritual realm. Do good Christians, solid Christians, could they still have people conflicts? Yeah, can you think of anybody in the Bible? We just preached through the book of Acts. Any of you remember this? Okay. Paul and Barnabas just had that issue. And they were both solid Christians, and yet there was conflicts. Why does it happen that people, even good people, have conflicts with other people at times? I mean, can you imagine why that would be the case? Yeah, we're just not human. What is the problem with humanity? We have sin nature. We still have a sin nature, and conflicts are a normal part of this because we're all sinners. We have different backgrounds. We have different opinions. We have different makeup. We have different needs. I mean, you know this is real. Some people need more sleep than other people need sleep. Okay, some people need more attention than some people need attention. Some people need more social interaction, and other people, they would just be just as glad to be a monk, be in a monastery and never talk to anybody for the rest of their life. And so these differences create tensions. And conflicts, here's a misconception. Conflicts only hurt marriages. That's not true. Okay? That's like saying trials are not good for us. According to James 1, what are we supposed to do when we enter into trials? Count it all joy. Why? Because the trials produce what? They produce maturity in our lives. They try us, they test us, they help to produce growth. And so the same thing happens even in marriage situations, that there can be tensions, there can be disagreements, there can be conflicts, and they're not an evil thing. The problem isn't the conflict. The problem isn't that there's tension. What's the difficulty? Pardon me? How they're handled. Yeah, it's not that, problems, we all have them. It's like saying, okay, if we were to have temptations or trials, it's not if, it's when we have them. So it's gonna be a problem. And here's the issue. If you don't handle them right, you can easily end up doing wrong to yourself, to your family, to your church body, to Jesus Christ. Let me give you an illustration of a conflict that isn't an evil conflict, but it happens in life. Here we go. Suppose a man has a friend named Jack who has a birthday coming up. He says to his wife, honey, let's not forget Jack's birthday. Send him a card. His birthday's next week. The wife replies, Jack is one of your best friends. I think you ought to get him a birthday present, not just a card. No way, the man answers. Jack wouldn't want a present. We're grown men. A card will be more than adequate. She responds, but Jack isn't any old friend. He's your best friend. Remember, he also took you to the ball game last week. Yeah, sure, Jack and I are close, but anything more than a birthday card, just wouldn't fit. Listen, she says, it's his 40th birthday. That's a tough time for good old Jack. He's going through a real transition. I think if you did a little bit extra, it'd be really nice. Wasn't he there for you when your dad passed away last year? And he's been at your right hand all these other years. Get him a present. I think it'll do him good. Okay, author writes, let's stop at the conversation at this point. Here we see a conflict arising out of a difference of opinion, not out of sin. Okay? So let's consider 3 ways the conflict could be handled. Number 1, the husband could say, I think you're right. Jack is special. It's his 40th birthday. What do you suggest we get him? Number 2, the husband could say, I don't think we need to get Jack anything for his birthday. We're adults, for Pete's sake. But if it'll make you happy, go and buy him something and I'll give it to him. Number 3, he could say, I'm absolutely opposed to getting Jack a birthday present. That is just a stupid, childish idea. How ridiculous. And besides, he's my friend, not yours, so stay out of it. I got to go. You always bring up such crazy things when I'm in a hurry. And he storms out of the house. Which one's good? Okay. The first scenario demonstrates a constructive response to conflict. The husband ponders his wife's suggestion and thinks, maybe she knows better than I do about these things. Maybe it's okay. So he says, I think you're right. His response encourages her to continue to offer advice and, quote, most men need advice, even though we don't admit it. The second approach just shuts her down. She gets her way. Jack gets a birthday gift, but the approach does more harm than good, for she receives no encouragement to offer her husband any assistance in the future. The third response is purely destructive. He banishes her from the battlefield, uses some terminal words to wound her spirit, like ridiculous, stupid, crazy, childish. John Gottman, a researcher at the University of Washington, has studied conflict in marriage. With his wife, Julie, and a research psychologist named Sybil Kerr, the Gottmans developed a criteria for predicting whether or not a marriage will survive. Gottman and his team reportedly can make the prediction within 3 minutes of assessing a couple. For more than 2 decades, the team has tracked 700 couples and have predicted with a 91% accuracy whether couples will stay married or divorce. By simply listening to how does the couple argue, according to the specialist, you can tell if the marriage is going to make it or not. The evidence revealed that couples must take care how they communicate, especially when they disagree with each other, et cetera, et cetera. There he goes for the rest of it. So let's build upon this. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Okay, and here's our contention this morning. Problems can strengthen our relationship forever. We're going to go through this several times. It's going to come up. Problems can strengthen your relationship forever. How do we do that? What do we do with it? Okay, let's assess the situation. There are different levels that we go through. Okay, 4 stages is what is commonly said when people are having difficulties or conflicts, how they handle them. They call them like the 4 stages of conflicts. It's similar to what they say there are 7 stages of grief. Again, they're not absolute in every case, but it's a general truth. And so what happens here is it deals with the idea that there's tensions that are building, and as we go through this, if we don't handle them right, the tensions will just continue to build, divisions will increase, alienation tends to increase over a period of time, and what eventually happens is they reach the ultimate where, people don't want to deal with it. Here's stage number 1 that is often mentioned, the wounded heart, which is where every one of us who has any type of relationship with any person, we've run through this at times, whether it be our parents, our kids, our siblings, and then especially with our spouse. We've run into where all of a sudden sometimes we get wounded. We feel wounded by something done, by something not done, by something said, by something not said. And so it happens. And it doesn't mean that they intentionally intended to hurt us. Sometimes you've been hurt by somebody who totally didn't mean to do it. I have hurt people that have told me that I've hurt them because they were in a store and I didn't stop and talk to them or wave to them at the other side of the aisle. And it's because I didn't even know that they were in the store and in the same aisle that I was. You can't get it? Okay, thank you. So then this is the idea that, we all get wounded. But if we don't know how to handle it here, if we don't deal with the wound, which most of us don't, we just say, okay, I'll just get on and I'll just put that in my pocket and I'll remember that she said this or did this, and we move on but don't deal with it. But we're still hurt. And so if we don't deal with it, here's what happens, number 2, is we can easily go to the cold heart. The cold heart is where the hurts are there, but what happens is the person pretends it's really not there. We'll just ignore it. If we ignore it, it's simply going to go away, okay? We know that the other person is wounded. You know that the other person is hurt, but we're just going to just ignore the hurt and we're just going to pretend life goes on. And what happens is you end up talking nice, not dealing with the real issue, the real hurt, and so what's going to happen? The hurt is going to come back. It's going to continue. And usually if you have a sore or a wound that has an infection starting and you don't treat it, what happens? Okay, it gets worse in time. And so what happens here is the people just pretend that there's no real conflict. And it's just, okay, and sometimes pretend it doesn't bother me, I'm just going to move on. But we become cold, and then what happens is this develops into what you and I often refer to in Scripture as bitterness. That takes us to the third stage. The third stage is what is called the hard heart. The hard heart is where people, this is the bad spot, where people are going through the motions in marriage. They're going through the motions, but there's no real desire to really be kind to the other person. You're doing it because you have to. You're at church. People are looking at you. We're gonna stay together because divorce is a bad thing. We know that God doesn't like it, but we have no real desire to make things better. We are enduring or existing rather than enjoying. And so at this level, what happens is the person may hear a message. They may hear friends. They may hear the Holy Spirit speak to their heart and say, you need to make things right. And by the way, this happens with families all the time at different levels. It happens with siblings and parents and teenagers. It can happen with husbands and wives as well, that all of a sudden you refuse to make things, even when your spouse is talking to you. It's just like, okay, shut down. And I really don't care. I don't care. I care about you because I'm providing for you, but I don't really care about you. And I'm just going to move on. This person is grieving the Holy Spirit. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 30. Where all of a sudden that idea that the Spirit is talking to you to watch your attitude, watch the words you say. You hurt somebody, and the Spirit is saying this is wrong. It is wrong to be in an argumentative state. It is wrong to be stubborn. It is wrong to just reject people and make accusations against other people that are unfounded. And that's calling grieving the Holy Spirit, but the person doesn't really care. They're going to go play church. They're going to go through the motions of, I'm a good Christian person, but they really don't care. And they're not right with the Lord. Your prayers are hindered. You can say all you want about, I really love the Lord, but really you're distanced from the Lord because you're not sensitive enough to humble yourself in order to say, I need to make some changes. That's the third. That's the really hard stage. And if there's a stage that shows up at a level here where people will still come to church, but they're not right with the Lord, this is the stage. Usually they don't come to church when we get to stage 4. Usually at stage 4, what happens here is what we would call the apathetic heart. This is when people bail. This is when they don't care anymore about pretending. This is where they don't I just don't care. I don't care what God says about the relationships. I don't care that God says I'm supposed to be working at my marriage. I don't care. I don't want to. I don't care what it's going to do to my kids. I don't care. We've heard this statement from people over the years that some people will say, well, my parents had a divorce. Look at me. I turned out right. It's like, really? You turned out right? You're going to repeat the same thing and damage your kids? And so this is the really, really bad stage. And like I say, usually it's not where people show up here anymore, okay? Because at this point, you really don't care. You just don't care, and so divorce is a viable option. Desertion is a viable option. Running away is a viable option because you don't care. You're apathetic, and you're just going to do what you want. And so what happens here is people will say, I don't care what God says. I don't care what my family says. This is a horrible place to be. This is the place where Hebrews warns about. In Hebrews, and some people say, oh, it's talking about passages where you can lose your salvation. No, it's talking about passages where believers get to the point that they don't even want to repent anymore. They get so cold, they get so apathetic, they get so hard that they're so callous to the Lord, they don't care. I want to do what I'm going to do. I don't care. And so what happens is love, that's commitment. Love isn't the feeling. Love is commitment. It's just gone. I bet you've run into people at these different stages, yes? That different people have come, and I bet you some of you know people that they started off this way and you saw, maybe I should go this way. They started off and the wounds didn't get taken care of, and then eventually all of a sudden it got cold and hard, and then they are apathetic. And you've seen it, and it's tragic. And people will say, well, that would never happen to me. Take heed, lest you fall. And so it happens at all levels. It happens at relationships with God. It happens at relationships with kids, family, parents, siblings, spouses. And so we want to avoid those things. Now, talking about the husband and wife relationship, let's make conflicts our ally. We have tensions. You have a disagreement on what to buy. You have a disagreement on where to go. You have a disagreement on how long to go somewhere. You have a disagreement on how long to stay out. You have a disagreement about what we're going to do for supper. You have a disagreement about how to train the kids and what we're supposed to do as far as a discipline factor. You have a disagreement whether we should save or spend. They happen. And there's nothing wrong with a disagreement. It's how we deal with it. Here are the things you don't want to do that all of us have done at times. We're going to see ourselves for a few moments. We're going to see it, and we're going to have to say, I don't want to do this again. Here we go. Here's the things that you need to work at. Don't do this. Number one, don't live with a chip on your shoulder. Okay, where it's like, okay, I'm living angry. I'm easily upset. I have this critical spirit that I just expect things to be bad. Poor me, woe is me. Nobody gives me what I want. And you live a life of just finding fault with other people. They can never do as good as you want them to do. And so they never say enough. They never do enough. But part of it isn't them. Part of it is you. Is that you're just living in this negative mindset. He warns husbands about this. He warns husbands, love your wives and do not become bitter against them, as if she can never please me. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. But have any of you lived, experienced, grown up in a home where whatever you do, it's not good enough? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so don't you live this way. Don't you always find fault with your spouse, with your kids. By the way, if you really work at, can you find fault with your spouse? Nobody wants to say the answer? Okay. Can you find fault with your kids? Can you find fault with your parents? Let's do the one that we can all say amen. Can you find fault with what your parents did with raising you? Yeah, did they make mistakes? Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Look in the mirror. You're part. Okay. Okay. We all can find fault in what other people did. What do you do with that fault finding? Do you forgive them and move on, or do you live in that realm of letting it eat you up? Does that make sense? Okay, so do this. Number two, don't air your conflicts in public. Okay? Matthew 5 says, if you have a fault between you and somebody else, what are you supposed to do? By the way, do you remember the whole setting of Matthew 5? If you come to the altar, what's he talking about? If you come to worship, okay, at the time, where did they worship? In the temple, okay? Jesus is preaching this in the area of Galilee. Where is the temple from Galilee? It's a 2-3 day journey. Yeah, it's down in Jerusalem. He's saying if you come to make sacrifice at the temple, and you remember there's a problem between you and somebody else, what are you supposed to do? Go back 2-3 day journey, make it right, and then do what? Then come back and make your sacrifice. Jesus is making this huge, that people problems that are unresolved create what problem? Between you and who? You and God. You and God. They need to be resolved. You don't take them public, you go to the person. It says go to them and be reconciled. Okay? Don't engage in conflict so as to get your way. Okay? I'm going to create a conflict. What I mean by that is this. Some people will use conflict. They will create tension to manipulate the setting. For instance, some people can use volume. They can use anger because they know that their partner, others will cower to them by them getting loud and angry. Some people can use, let me ask you this. What other devices do people use to manipulate and get their way? What's that? Tears. Did you say tears? Yeah. Can it be used in a way to get your way, to get what you want? By the way, if you want to see classic of that, watch little kids. What do they typically do to get their way? They cry, they go into their own little, what do we call those things? They go into their tantrums. And if they're not trained out of it, what are they going to do? They're going to do it all the time. And some people as adults, they have their tantrums to get their way. And so don't engage in this, no matter what it is. He says in James 4, okay, whence comes wars and fightings among you? They didn't come from outside. They come even of your lusts that war in your members. You lust, you have not, you killed, you desire. This is between believers. What's he mean you're killing one another? He means you're destroying relationships. He's not talking about physically killing. He's talking about me maintaining an argumentative and angry spirit towards Alice, let's say. Okay? That's killing. That's destroying. Whether it be with Deb, whether it be with any of you, whether it be with any of my kids, whatever. He's saying it's because you at times are being selfish. Examine this. That this attitude of I want my way by threats, by yelling, by tears, by stomping my feet. Okay. We didn't necessarily, I don't recall us ever running into it. Maybe we did, but I don't recall it being a scenario. But I've dealt with a lot of people that a lot of young people will use this manipulation technique against their parents. You don't love me. You don't love me. Why? Because I put a curfew up? If you loved me, you would let me, have whatever I want. And by the way, when your kid tells you, you don't love me, you don't want to look at him and say, you're right. Okay. You know that's wrong. But you would be right in saying, I love you, but at this moment I don't like you. That's legitimate, because I don't love their behavior, because their behavior is selfish. How does it make you feel, really, if your kid were to say, you don't love me? Yeah, it would hurt. It would definitely hurt. And you go, but they're trying, it's a manipulation technique. Do wives, husbands ever use, you don't love me? Can that be done in marriage? Yeah. And maybe it's true, but then you have another issue. But be careful of trying to use divisive tools, hurtful tools to get your way. Let's go. Don't lie. Don't lie to your spouse. Don't use sex as a weapon. Can this ever happen in marriage? Yes or no? Okay, no, we don't want to say yes or no out loud, because maybe somebody will look and say, oh yeah, maybe that's your situation. Okay? It's stated in 1 Corinthians 7 that if you abstain, let it be with consent. Why is that? Because the abstinence factor of sexual relationships in marriage, if it's not by consent, it's probably because there could be one of them is manipulating. And can sex be used as a manipulative tool? Or in fact, I put up different words. It can be used as a weapon or a reward. Okay? Since you did what I want, fine, we're going to have sex. And then I put down these words, it can easily lead to the arms race. Do you know what I mean by that? If you're using sex as a weapon in conflict, you can force the other person into somebody else's arms. Okay? Be cautious. Be careful. Let's go on. Don't act like a turtle. How's a turtle act? When there's danger, what does the turtle do? Okay, pulls its head in, pretends there's nothing, goes into this, the possum, whatever you want to call it. Don't do this. As soon as conflict, draw in. Listen, you got to learn to deal with the conflict. You got to deal with it. You got to talk about it. You got to address it, or it's just going to continue, and the coldness, the hard heart, it's just going to go. Don't call in the heavy artillery. What I mean by this is when there's a conflict, what would be heavy artillery in your mind if there's a conflict brewing? There's tension between you and your spouse. What's heavy artillery? What's that? Bring up past faults. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get the first part. Bring up past faults. Okay, that's a good one. What else? Saying a phrase like, you always, okay, that's good. That's heavy artillery. Oh, yeah. I was thinking parents, if I were to do this one to her, you're just like your mother. Okay? Making comparisons to people that, heavy artillery is snide remarks, insults, verbal attacks. Okay? And again, we know the heaviest artillery is what type of attacks? The physical? I'm not even venturing there. We all know it's so wrong and so evil to do physical attacks. I'm just assuming with any common sense, you know that. Physical aggression, throwing things, smashing things, hitting one another. In my mind, that is so out of the realm of Christianity. And maybe I'm just so stupid. Maybe I should bring that up first of all. But it is so ungodly to vent your anger in a physical way that's uncontrolled. But this one I know is really there in Scriptures in Ephesians chapter 4. He deals a lot with Christians using verbal assaults. So it can go like this. It can go, why do you wear your wedding ring on the wrong finger? Snide remark, reminds me I married the wrong woman. Okay. So they're cutesy, they're funny, but the intent is to do what? To hurt. The intent is purely to hurt. We have a good marriage, she says, because we both love the same man. You. Okay? She's slamming at him. Or you got this one, the wife complaining, you love football more than you love me. His response, maybe so, but I do love you more than baseball. Well, that's reassuring. Okay? So you have these little things like the counselor asks the wife this, what do you and your husband have in common? Her response, just one thing. Okay? Neither of us can stand the other person. Okay? They're slams. They're intended to create a problem and to hurt the other person. The Word of God is really clear about these things. Even the physical. Put up the sword. Okay? Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. Let's do this one. Don't paint yourself in the corner by saying threatening statements. Have you ever known anybody that they got into tension, the argument kept on brewing, and neither one of them wanted to back down? I have a family member this happened to, that they had tensions brewing. They weren't addressing them, but the tensions just kept on brewing and brewing and brewing until one of them said, if things don't change, I'm going to get a divorce. The other one responded, go ahead. They went through the entire process of divorce. And through the whole thing, neither one of them wanted it. But neither one of them would say, I'm sorry. They divorced. They were apart for several months. Guess what they did? They remarried. They got counseling and they remarried, and they'll to this day they will say, we were so stinking proud that we made these threats and neither one of us backed down. And now they look back and they say, we were so, put whatever word you want to put in there. We were so dumb. We were so foolish. We were so not walking with the Lord. But it came because they painted themselves in a corner. And in their pride, neither one of them would back down. By the way, that's a very expensive lesson to learn. If we want to just talk cash, it's a very expensive lesson to go through that all, and make all the house settlements and all those things, and then 6 months later say, we didn't mean to do all that. Don't paint yourself in a corner. Don't ever look at your spouse as your enemy just because they disagree with you. They're my enemy. They're against me, and I'm against them. By the way, how does this normally happen? How do we normally view enemies, opponents? We're in a boxing ring with somebody. What's the intent? To win? What else? To what? Take them down. And if they get close, punch. And if they punch you, do you remember as a kid? If somebody smacked you, I won't do this right. I just spoke about it in public, so I won't do it. Okay. If somebody smacked you as a kid, what was the natural response? Well, I didn't even hit you. Okay. And then if they hit back, what do you have to do? Slap harder. Okay. So, and this happens. This happens. People think all of a sudden retaliation goes, and you got to get more firepower, and you got to beat them. One of us is going to win, and it's going to be me. And I am not going to say, this is when certain words are totally, you're at a mindset, I'm never going to say the word sorry, or even worse than that. You were, I can't even say it, right? Okay. You were right, I was wrong. When you're at this mode, it's just like, okay, I'm going to have my way. I'm going to get my way no matter what. No matter what foolish decisions, inflictions are made, I'm going to get my way. Why? Why is all of a sudden we're at such combative, and by the way, a lot of us are competitive by nature. Why do we have to compete till somebody has to win? When somebody has to win, both of you lose. You lose. And so be the peacemaker, not the prize fighter. Let's go on another don't. Don't react to everything. Now, none of you would do this. Okay, this is my besetting struggle. Is reacting reacting instead of acting. What I mean by that is this. It is easy to respond quickly with just a normal, natural response. If somebody cuts me off on the road, my normal inner reaction is yell. No, I'm not a screamer in the car, okay? My response is I'm going to speed up the car, and I'm going to try to get in front of them too soon. Not a yeller. I'm striving for crashing the car. Okay. And this happens to a lot of us, is we don't think before we react. It just comes back. It just shoots out. But the Word of God says you got to train yourself for this. It's not natural. It's totally unnatural for us to have this type of self-control. So because we're sinful creatures, because we're self, do you remember what it says about husbands? Love your wives as you love yourself. By nature, we don't, people say, oh, I need therapy so I can learn to love myself. Scripturally, the problem is we love ourselves too much. Okay. So it's saying in the Word of God, here's what you need to do. You got to learn not to act. You need to learn to think through your actions. Okay, I made the comment about this a couple weeks ago. You get mad, storm out of the house, squeal the tires, everything that's so good for the door jamb, for the tires, for your reputation in the neighborhood. The neighbors say, there they go again. Okay? Instead of speeding away, instead of slamming the doors, what are you supposed to be doing? Training your mind to think, what is my best response? What should I be doing here? It means transforming your mind, Romans chapter 12. Transforming the way you think about your spouse. Instead of thinking negative at this moment, okay, I'm going to have to transform my mind to just calm down and think that which is noble, that which is pure, that which is right. But it takes great effort. It takes self-discipline. It takes maturity. Maturity, by the way, is equal to strength. It takes strength to say, I need to stop saying things just because I'm thinking them. That's, by the way, that's where I see the great weakness in this media blitz that we have around us all the time. Just because we can say something doesn't mean we should. Okay? Just because I can comment on something on the internet doesn't mean I ought to. Just because I have an opinion politically doesn't mean I should broadcast it. Okay? So we need to rehearse. This calls for self-control even towards your spouse. Do you ever notice the people that we lack the most self-control towards are those closest to us? Yes, no? How can we talk to other people when we're upset? We can bring it in. We can be real kind walking into this crowd. But all of a sudden when we get in the car, we can be crude. We can be rude. What gives us the green light to lose self-control in this relationship? Or with our kids? Or with our parents? Or with our siblings? For some reason, we have this attitude that I don't need to be self-controlled in the confines of my house. If you read Ephesians 5, what's the first area of relationship he deals with where you need self-control? It's the family. It's not the workplace. That's at the very end. It's the church, it's your family, then he's going into all these other relationships and ends up at church. So self-control is just, Scripture's just replete with these ideas that, by the way, the same verse with different translation, just the idea of having self-control and not assuming, thinking, and reacting in an evil way. Let's move on. Don't assume your anger is always a bad thing, by the way. Your uncontrolled anger is a bad thing. But anger, upsettedness, conflict, it's almost like a pain that you have. A pain is a good thing at times because it calls your attention to something that needs to be changed or fixed. Sometimes your anger is that same thing. It's you, your spouse, getting upset about something, and you're going to have to learn to fix it. And so it's not always evil. What is evil is, when it says, be ye angry, but do what? Sin not. It's the uncontrolled anger. So when it's uncontrolled, when it's just these outbursts, then you have all these other evil things that happen that are given in scriptures. And again, Ephesians 4 is really loaded with it. The last few verses about all these different things that happen. Let's do this. When upset, respond because here's the answer. If done right, problems can strengthen our relationship forever. That's our theme. Problems can strengthen relationships. So let's go on. What methods do you use when you're upset? What do you do? Okay, here we go. Let's be real practical about some of this, okay? To handle conflicts, it starts off with commitment. Commitment to unity. Commitment to unity to the relationship of not destroying this relationship. That's in the husband and wife factor. By the way, it also applies to other relationships. It applies to other relationships between you and your kids, you and your parents, you and your siblings. That I have a commitment that I don't want to destroy a relationship. How do we say it? Don't burn your bridges? Okay. it even applies here, is you don't want to destroy relationships. Okay, we want to commit to unity. Is there a time when relationships can be and should be dissolved? The answer is yes, Matthew 18. When somebody is not doing right, then we need to pull back and let them understand that they've even pulled back in their relationship with the Lord by not reconciling. So be committed to oneness. Set up ground rules that you're going to follow when dealing with conflicts. By the way, can I make a silly suggestion? If you have kids who are going off to college, before they come home next summer, you should do this with them. It would be to your benefit that you guys discuss, because they've just gone away to college. They've had independence for 9 months. They're going to come back into your house, and they're going to think, I still have that same dorm life independence as I did back in the house. It can't work that way. It just can't work that way because there's other people in the house. In most of you, there's probably other youngsters in the house. And so you need to set up ground rules. What are we going to do? If there's some disagreements, if there's some tensions, what about hours as far as curfews, things like that? What about chores in the house? And so we always encourage people, hey, listen, set up ground rules before the kids come back home. You're going to need them. It's going to happen. You're going to have brand new conflicts. Your kid isn't coming home the same person. By the way, if things have functioned, your family has moved on, not in a bad way. Your family has moved on and become adjusted to them being gone. So you're operating at a different level. So set up ground rules. This is on all relationships. Set up ground rules that you're going to follow when dealing with conflicts. Set them up before the conflict arises. When you're having a good day, okay, sit down and discuss what are we going to do if and when we have a difficulty. You're going to have a difficulty. You're going to have a disagreement. How are we going to handle it? This is one of the things I've done now in the last few years in premarital counseling, is I've encouraged those couples to write down their mission statement, their goals. What are you going to do when you have an argument? What are your ground rules that you're going to follow? And write them out. Because if you don't, it's like a budget. If you don't write it out, you don't have a budget, folk. If it's in your brain, okay. So you got to write it down. And when you're writing your ground rules, address your needs. Address how you two function, how you two see things, how you two, where you know your issues. Your ground rules for you, okay. This may be different. I don't think, if I recall, I don't think we've ever had a financial argument, disagreement. I don't recall having anything except for when you go to garage sales and just bring home all kinds of stuff for me. Yes, that's right. That may not be the same for some of you. For us, I can honestly say before the Lord, I don't think that we've ever had a financial disagreement even. Some couples can't say that. For some couples, the financial is the TNT, right? Nitroglycerin, okay? For us, probably our biggest thing is time and work. That's been the tensions. For some of you with different types of regularly set hour jobs, that's not your disagreement because you punch the clock. So you have to address your needs. What is something that you need to deal with? And then you commit to these things. And so let me give you a real life situation instead of addressing Deb and I, because she's going to bust on me and embarrass me even more because she's right. During what circumstances or times does conflict tend to surface in your marriage? Identify those areas of tension, discuss them, and what you might do about it. Okay, so this couple's monitoring when do they see their biggest conflicts. Consider John and Mary. It seems that every time they go out for an evening, World War III breaks out before they get home. She's exhausted early and wants to go home while the evening is young. He's a slow starter and begins having a good time just about the time she's dead on her feet. She says, let's go. He says, no, let's stay longer. They finally get home, but they're angry almost every time they go out. What should they do? In a neutral moment, they should sit down and analyze the patterns. They might decide that on the days they plan to go out for an evening, she's going to do less things around the house and less pressures and get a little bit of a rest before they go out. Prior to leaving for any open-ended event like a party, they should agree on the time they will leave ahead of time. It won't take long for them to understand that John is not trying to exhaust his wife, nor Mary is trying to squash her husband's fun. They need to realize their problem probably relates to varying body metabolisms and different personalities. So they need to agree upon a procedure that heads off future conflicts. I grew up in a home where my dad could function with like 3 hours of sleep. Drove the rest of us nuts. Because my dad didn't need sleep, he assumed nobody else in the house needs sleep. And it was just constant, that, why are you guys sleeping in? It's 4 a.m. We should be up and working and go out to the gas pumps. Why? Nobody else in the world is up at this time. Okay. But it created conflicts because of differences that aren't evil differences. But how they were dealt with created problems. So here, set up ground rules. Let me give you 6 of them, let's say. Okay? We promise we're going to talk about the conflicts. This is a ground rule. We're going to talk about them. We promise we will attack the conflict, not each other. These are my promises that you say I'm going to write down. We're going to talk about our conflicts, not ignore them. We're going to attack the conflict. We will give each other space when it is needed. This is what we talked about a few weeks ago. Some of you here, some of you weren't there. That you have a term, you have something that when you are feeling you are losing control, you say to your spouse, what did I say, go fly south or something like that for fun. And the birds are flying south. Some phrase that says, I need to stop. I'm not in a good space. I'm not in a good mind. I'm not right now, I'm not spirit-led. I'm being flesh-led. I need to stop. And so you buy that time, get that time to calm down. But this is one of your ground rules. And you're going to respect the other person when they need this time. Okay? And then you return to it within 24 hours. You promise to deal with your conflicts privately. What I mean by that is this: not before others, not before the kids, not to others, unless and only if you need outside intervention. Okay? Ground rule. Ground rule number 5, discuss our problems with respect towards each other. We will talk about it, but we will maintain a respect for one another. We just had a deacons organizational meeting a week ago. And this is we lay out ground rules, how we're going to function. To me, this is the greatest criteria. Number 1 is that when we get together as officers and we discuss things, we must maintain a demeanor of respect towards one another, or we stop the meeting. We have never ever had a situation where people are screaming, yelling at one another, getting mad, really angry, because we set up this ground rule. We don't agree all the time. There's lots of times we don't agree. But it has to be discussed with respect. And it can be done. Okay? Number 6, we should end our discussions with prayer. Good luck on this one. Good luck staying mad at the person that you're holding hands with and praying together. Yeah, that one, good luck on trying to say, I'm still going to get my way, while you're bowing your head before the Lord and saying, thy will be done. Those are some basic ground rules that you can follow. Problems can be resolved. So in the moment of a conflict, there's certain things. That's exactly where we will stop right there. We're going to give the PCSOR and wrap this one and move to something else next Sunday. Thanks for listening.